Today is Tuesday, June the 7th. The location is the Yankee Air Museum in Belleville, Michigan. The time is 12 noon. The person being interviewed today is Truman Fillinger. Truman was born on December the 19th, 1920, and he served in the Navy during World War II. The interview will be conducted by Dan Mihal. This interview is being conducted by the Oral History Project at the Yankee Air Museum in Belleville, Michigan. Good morning, Truman. How are you today?
Very good.
That's good. To start with, Truman, can you tell me where you were born?
In Detroit, Michigan.
And did you grow up in Detroit?
Right, yes, I did.
Which side of Detroit, east side or west side?
On the east side.
So that over near Gratiot Avenue, or?
Yeah, well, not at Gratiot, but more on Jefferson. More by Grosse Pointe. 1 block from Grosse Pointe.
And did you have a famous family that lived across the street from you?
Limburg.
The Limburgs. Oh, they were fairly famous.
There's Limburg.
And what were your parents' names?
My parents?
Yes, your parents.
My mother was Catherine, and my dad was Frank.
And were your parents born in this country?
Yes, my mother was, but my father come over from Germany.
And he died when you were relatively young, is that correct?
4 years old.
Okay.
I was 4 when he died.
Do you remember, so you were educated in Detroit? You went to school in Detroit?
Yeah.
Do you remember what schools you went to?
Yeah, Guyton and Jackson.
Okay, and which high school?
Yeah.
Okay. Which high school? Was it Southeastern?
I went to Milwaukee, and I was living there for a while with one of my uncles, and I went to a vocational school where you learn a trade.
Okay. But did you graduate from high school in Detroit?
Yeah.
And that was Southeastern, is that?
Yeah.
Did you play any sports in high school? Did you like play baseball or swim?
What do you mean by that?
Well, did you play baseball when you were a kid?
Oh, I like swimming. I did a lot of swimming. Baseball, I did that too.
Okay. Were you a Tigers fan when you were growing up?
Yeah.
Did you get to go to any games?
Say that again.
Did you get to go to any Tiger games?
Oh yeah, I went to, not too many, but I went to maybe about five ago.
Okay. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah. Vince, Frank, and Cal.
And you were the youngest of the?
I was the youngest, yeah.
So, do you remember what year you graduated from high school? Would that have been about 1938?
Yeah, about in there, yeah.
And after high school, what did you do?
Well, like I say, I went up to these vocational schools, and then I went to work for an uncle there.
Okay.
In the cabinet making, he was a carpenter.
And then what did you do after that?
Well, I lasted 1 year at that. So I went back home, and I went from there to another uncle in St. Clair. And I was going to learn the meat business, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I lasted 1 year in there.
And then what did you do after that?
Well, after that, worked at the U.S. Marine Hospital in Footholder Road.
And then after that?
Well, I went to General Motors, Hydramatics, and I was there for 30 years and out.
Were you living at home with your mother at that time?
Yeah. No, not all that. No, I was married. I got married.
Okay. So were you working at GM when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of when Pearl Harbor was attacked, how you heard about it?
Yeah. Well, we got it on the news and the radio, and like that was our most knowledge about it.
So when did you enter the service?
When did I go into service?
Yes.
Oh, Christ. Let's see. Do you remember that?
Was around 1943?
Yeah. No, around 42, 43.
Okay. And were you drafted then?
Well, yeah, I was drafted.
Okay. But you ended up going into the Navy, right? Is that something that you wanted to do? You wanted to be?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was, I went for examination, and I wanted to go in the Navy. So I could have went in the Army, I could have went in the Marines, or I could have went in the Navy. So I told them that I want to go in the Navy as I went along. So when I got at the end of the line, well, that's where I went, in the Navy.
Why were you so interested in going into the Navy?
You had to go in one or the other. So I don't want them shooting bullets at me. I don't know. But I thought, well, get on a ship, well, we could be sank. We just about was sank. You know, they shot a torpedo at us. But I thought you get your training, you get your 3 meals a day, you get a shower. It's healthy. You get plenty of outdoor activities. We used to lay out on the decks at night. It was so hot during the day that down below the ship, in the compartments, it was so warm that we just go up above and throw our mat down and go to sleep right up on the deck. But
So after you signed up in the Navy, did you go to boot camp fairly soon after that?
no, I went to boot camp before. I went to Great Lakes. I was trained there.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the training at Great Lakes, or do you remember anything specific? Was the food any good, or?
Yeah, oh yeah, everything we had there was good. I mean, they took good care of us. We marched and learned how, and that. We went to shows, like there are other guys that sign up for boxing and that, and we'd go over there to see about boxing and that, and there's a lot of things we did at Great Lakes.
And after you finished training at Great Lakes, where did you go next?
Well, after we left Great Lakes, we went to San Francisco.
Okay.
We went on a train to San Francisco.
And is that where you were assigned to a ship?
No, I was. That was right next to San Francisco. Uh, it was a prison.
Alcatraz?
No, I went by Alcatraz,
Okay.
but this was a terminal prison, or Al Capone. He was there for a while. It was we ate there and we waited for our ship to come in. See, our ship was out on shakedown. It was brand new, and when it come in, it was out on shakedown. When it come in, like, they called us guys, and we were aboard the ship.
Okay.
And then they assigned us to our different positions, and then from there we went to Hawaii.
So this would have been around late 1943 then?
Yeah, around there.
And what was the name of your ship?
Destroyer, it was Bangust, USS Bangust,
What was the number?
735.
And what kind of motors did the ship have?
Movies?
Motors.
Very good. We had 2 cameras. I don't know how they got the 2 cameras. I know we had one, but they had another one that they got somehow. But whenever we had a movie, why, they didn't have to stop and wait and load it up. They just went over to the other one.
What kind of motors did the ship have to move it?
Oh, it was all different kinds of movies.
No, motors. What kind of? How did the ship move? What drove the ship?
Oh, well, when the movie was on.
No, what the diesels were the diesel engines that they used to move the ship?
Oh, what moved our ship?
Yes.
Well, we had 16-cylinder diesels that were driving a 15,000 electric motor, and that was electric motor or a generator, and then that was driving the motors. And that's what showed we had one big motor there.
What was your job aboard ship?
Oh, I was one thing. I was run the boilers and evaporators. I had a room of my own, where a storeroom, and we had all kind of stuff in there that I had to keep in track of.
What was your job title? What did they call you?
What'd they call me?
Yeah, what was your job title?
Oh, I was a what was I? Motor machinist mate.
So the boilers were below decks then, and that's where you were working?
So I was on the top. There was a deck up here where the boiler was, really nice ones, And then they stand under, the evaporators was down here. So I'd sit up here and run the boilers, and we had compensating tanks where I had pumped all the good water back onto, and all the others was pumped out. It takes everything out of the water.
So when you sailed to Hawaii after you left San Francisco, that would have been probably around January 1944. Does that sound right?
About around in there, yeah.
Now, the Banks did quite a bit of sailing across the Pacific. Do you remember where you sailed to first after you left Pearl Harbor? What islands?
Well, we went to the Alice Islands. That was our first stop. Then we went to let's see, went to, yeah, Ellis Island. That's where our first stop was. And Australia, just in their harbor, Australia. We didn't stay there long, but we left there, and then we went to the Gilberts and the Marshalls and the Archipelagos, and I was on Chihuahua. I was on our air base where the bombers were. I was over in the China Seas. I was up at Anawita, and I was way up north where it was cold, you know. Alaska, up in there for a period of time where the Japanese activity were, and we were looking for submarines and aircraft.
So,
And then we come back down, and we started with the fleet, and we had ammunition ships we had to protect. We had tankers.
so you were escorting these ships.
That's escorting, yeah.
Now, did you encounter any Japanese submarines?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we picked this one up at night, and it was right next to us, you know. And as soon as it must have spotted us, because it started going down, you know.
Yeah.
But it went down, and then it got focused around, and we did, and it shot a torpedo at us. Well, they missed. And this is really what we wanted, to get around. We maneuvered around and got the sound gear, picked up the submarine, and we had hedgehogs. We shot all kind of hedgehogs over there. They're long bullets, you know, with a fin on the back, and they go down, and either they go off, or they just keep going down. They're set at a certain depth, you know. Well, then we had depth charges also. We dropped a lot of those around them, and there was a oil slick. Oh, I'd say they said about 5 miles from where that incident happened.
Wow.
So we figured that we got them.
Okay, probably, yes. Did your ship also operate off New Guinea?
Operate off where?
New Guinea?
No.
Now, when you were sailing in the Gilberts, you would have been very near the equator. Was there a ceremony when you
Oh yeah.
crossed the equator?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Can you tell me about it?
Well, they had the royal family. You had to get on your hands and knees and kiss the royal king in the belly, and while they were hitting you in the rear end with the bags and that, then you went to the queen. You had to talk to her, you know, and they were hitting you with a bag. Then you got to the royal doctor, or the barber, and they went and they cut your hair and put all kind of grease in there and that. Then they had, I think there was Epsom salt or something, you know, and they give you that. You had to drink that. Then they had a big canopy full of water, you know, on the lower part of there, big enough to swim in, you know. And they threw us down in there. But before they did that with the barber, he cut your hair, you know, and that, and he blasted you all up. Then he takes you over there to this here water, threw you in there, and they duck you and hold you under there for a while. And then you come out of there, and they had a chute going along the deck, you know. There's all the garbage in there. And you had to crawl through all that garbage. And while you were crawling through the garbage, they were whacking you in the rear end, you know. And you know what? There was glass in there. Boy, you had to be careful.
I imagine.
But anyhow, I was very careful that I didn't cut myself in that. But I got through there, and after that, it said I was a pollywog or something.
Pollywog, yes.
Yeah, and that made a sailor out of me. Going through all this here stuff, then you got to be a sailor. But you felt so funny, you know.
Yeah.
And the doctor, I put some stuff on, I don't know what the hell it was in your mouth, you know, and anything to make it miserable for you. And not only as a crew had to go through this, but the officers that haven't been over there, they had to go through the same thing. The ones that hadn't been over the equator, you know. So they got the works too.
When your ship was part of a larger fleet, did you participate in any invasions of islands or?
Oh, the only time I was sick was when I went from San Francisco to Hawaii. That was the first time. So they told me, oh, just eat a lot of stuff that's, don't drink a lot of water, just eat different stuff that helps you, you know. I forgot what the hell we had to eat.
Okay. Did your ship participate in any invasions?
Well, yeah, we were Guam. Like I said, we were hauling the battleships, and they were just lined up by Guam there, and you could see the salvos of bullets and that going over onto Guam. And we didn't invade them, but we were there, and we watched it all and seen how it was, you know.
Could you describe what it was like when, like, the battleships went to refuel from the tankers?
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, it's something to see. You take that battle wagons and aircraft carriers and that, and they get in a line. And as they're going along, they turn, and they let a tanker come up there and turn right next to in between them, you know. Mm-hmm. And then the tankers would put the hose over and pump the fuel in there. Then they had things that picked up drums of oil, you know, and would bring them over to the. But they just kept going in the line and refueling. It was really something to see. I was wondering how they were going to do it.
Yeah. Well, did your ship refuel the same way then? You'd come up next to a tanker and take a line over?
Same thing with us. We'd come up there and they loaded us up.
Now, did your ship encounter a mine, a floating mine?
There was one that we saw floating, and the officers come out with their rifles and they shot at it. And evidently it didn't go off, but it sank, must have sank, because I don't know how mine is. How it must have a area in there where it makes it float, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they shot at it, and it sank. But when they let you know when they saw it floating, because it was kind of rough, you know.
So when you were in the Marshalls and the Gilberts, that's a pretty hot. It's pretty hot there, isn't it?
Yeah, it was warm, like down in Florida.
So when you were working the boilers, did that make it even hotter, or was it hard to bear?
Well, they had blowers down there. In fact, when I used to wash my clothes and stuff, I'd take them down there and put them in front of the blowers, and they'd dry them before I get off of watch, you know. That was good.
Now you talked about earlier about the movie cameras that you had on the ship. Did you exchange movies with other ships so you could see different movies?
No, we didn't get on any other ships. But when we pulled in next to a bigger ship, we had to look up at the side, and everybody up there was looking down on us. And we were showing movies and that, but there was these big ships, all these guys were looking down, and that was something, you know. We put on a show, I forget what it was, Christmas or some show there where we had cigars and
Oh, wow.
that we didn't know nothing to drink, you know, but we had cigars, and they had the dancing. They had a guy there. He's dressed just like a girl, you know. I mean, he looked like a girl. He was so neat, you know. And they had another guy, and they were jitterbugging. And they did a good job of it. And some other entertainment there, you know. But here they were up there watching us put on a big show, you know.
Now, did your ship sail to Palau too, as well, in the Caroline Islands?
Carolina Island?
Yes.
No, I don't think we were in there.
Okay. What about the Philippines?
Yeah, we were in the Philippines.
Were you in the Philippines in a typhoon?
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? What it was like riding in a typhoon in that ship?
One way. We went right along with the. It wasn't a typhoon; it was a hurricane. Our ship had to go along with that. You know, I couldn't turn around or anything until we went through it. Then we wasn't the only ones. There were other ships that were dead in the water. They needed fuel, see? And they had tugs out there come pulling up next to them and giving them power to get their pumps and that. Because, you know, a lot of those ships took on a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
And the aircraft carriers, or some of them were in such bad condition, they took and pushed some of the planes right off into the ocean, you know, because they're so damaged, you know.
Right. Did your ship, when it was in the hurricane, did it pitch side to side quite a bit?
Yeah, mostly it's like that.
Okay. Now, did you end up looking for survivors from some ships that sank in that storm?
Yeah. We in one of the areas we were picking up some of those people that was on our service, we picked up some, and one of them we picked up was a Japanese, and the Japanese followed the officer all around, you know, and the Marines, they says, "Here, give them to us, you know, we'll take care of them." And they were with us, you know, but they wouldn't let them have them. It's just this guy stuck with that, and I guess he was a prisoner of war, you know.
Did your ship go to Okinawa too?
Oh, the Okinawa, yeah.
Did you encounter any Japanese kamikazes in Okinawa? Did you see any?
No, we were ready for them, though. They were coming in there, but we didn't encounter them.
But you were sort of on picket duty, prepared to shoot them down if they came in?
By Okinawa?
Yeah.
Submarines and aircraft.
Okay.
And what ships we had a lot of ships out there, you know.
Now your ship sailed with the 3rd Fleet and the 5th Fleet, is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
And you sailed to Japan after the surrender? After Japan surrendered?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we were, what the heck were we? We were in, we were in Japan, and we were signed to go back to the States.
Do you remember what town in Japan you were in? The name of the city?
The Yoky Shogi?
Yoky Shogi, yes.
Yeah, I went in that. I'm trying to think of where you drive in. If we floated in this big area, but it was Yoky Shogi that was in there, you know.
I think it's on the entrance to Tokyo Bay.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Now you, after the surrender, you also took a Japanese submarine, correct?
Yeah. We took the crew on our ship and put a crew of ours on their submarine. 'Cause they gave up, you know. And we took them, I forget where we took them, but we took them someplace and they were put under our supervision, you know.
Yeah, I believe that submarine was the I-14.
I don't know what they did with the submarine. We come into we had a big tender there, you know, a big ship that can do anything. Got lathes on there that can make shafts and propellers and whatnot. Anything to fix our machine or our ship. They brought them in there, and that's where they took them from there. I don't know what they did with them.
Now you couldn't have been in Japan too very long because Japan surrendered in August, mid-August, and then you were discharged by November. So you must have sailed right home after the picking up that submarine. Is that right?
Yeah, and after that, we were told we don't need it anymore, so we got ready and went back to the States.
So you sailed back to Hawaii from Japan?
Yeah.
Did you have shore leave in Hawaii?
Well, we didn't stay too long there. I got off the ship there and took a train because I don't want to.
You mean back in San Francisco?
Our ship went through Panama Canal to New York, and from there on, then you dispersed. But instead of that, got off right there in San Francisco, got on the train, and I come home.
Did you go straight home, or did you stop somewhere in between?
I stopped in Milwaukee.
Is that to visit your uncle there?
Yeah, I had a couple uncles there and aunts. I just visited. One had a mill work and one had a bar. Fritz's bar.
Did the Navy try to get you to re-enlist before you decided to leave?
That's right, yeah. No, I didn't want to though.
Okay. Did any of your brothers serve in the military?
My brother Vince was in the Army. I met him there.
Where was he serving? Do you remember?
It's San Francisco someplace. I don't know. Because when we went to Hawaii, we were going to leave the next day, and I got in contact with him. He called me, and I got in contact with him, and he come over and visited with me.
That must have been nice.
Out.
Now, do you remember where you met your wife?
Yeah. My wife?
Yes.
I met her up in a dance hall.
And you met her before the war, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when you got married?
When I come back out of the service.
So probably around 1946 or something like that?
I don't remember.
Now, when you got back to Detroit, did you go right back to General Motors to work?
No, I went to work for one of my uncles in Milwaukee. Well, I lasted 1 year, and I went to work for another uncle in St. Clair, and he was in the meat business.
That was where you worked before the war, right?
Yeah. And then, but no, I worked at General Motors before I went to either of them. But then I was going to learn the trade instead of the General Motors. But after I got back out of the service, I went into General Motors, and that was the best thing I ever did. That was what I was good at.
How many years did you work for General Motors?
30 and out.
And you said you worked for Hydramatic, is that right?
Hydramatic, yeah.
So that eventually would have been the plant that was in Ypsilanti at Willow Run?
Well, one was in Detroit. It was the old plant. That's where it started. And then we went out to Plymouth, and a brand new plant and everything, and that burnt down. And then from there on, we moved to Willow Run, and they set up making transmissions there.
So you commuted all those years from Dearborn to Willow Run every day?
Yeah, every day, yeah.
That's a long drive.
Not too bad. This fellow bought a old car, and he come from Detroit, and he'd pick us guys up, and he'd drive us there, and he'd drive us back home and let us off, and we just paid him a few bucks to
Well, that's not a bad
get
deal.
going. So that was a good deal, you know.
Now, how many children did you have, Truman?
4.
You had 3? What were their names?
Oh, wait a minute. There was Dolores, Kenny, Cal, and Frank.
Cal and Frank were your brothers, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm in the,
Larry?
yeah, Larry, Kenny, and Dee Dee.
Okay, so 3.
3. Yeah, that's right, 3.
And they all stayed close by you? They're all in Michigan?
All around. Kenny lived close by.
Now, to kind of close out, what would you say to the kids that are growing up today about your experiences in the war?
Quite an experience I went through, you know. I told you a lot of stuff here, but there's a lot more I could tell you. It was very interesting as long as I was out there in the South Pacific for over 2 years. I seen a lot of stuff, and it was interesting in that. And the best part of it was I was fortunate that I come back alive.
Yes.
Because we were in right where the war was, and the kamikazes were coming in, the submarines were coming in, and that's what we were built for. To counteract them, you know, knock them out before they knocked us out. That was war, but it's all over.
Well, people need to be reminded of the things that you did. So I don't have any more questions. I want to thank you for your time, Truman. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Well, I don't know what you're going to do with it, but I hope it helps you.
Well, thank you.